This is our homily for Sunday, August 17th, the 20th Sunday of Ordinary Time. On the day of her operation, a woman was stopped from fleeing out of the hospital in her hospital gown by a security guard. "What's the matter?" he asked as he grabbed her. She said, "I heard the nurse say it's a very simple operation. Don't worry, calm down, stop shaking. I'm sure it will be okay." The guard replied, "She was just trying to comfort you. What's so frightening about that?" The woman replied, "She wasn't talking to me, she was talking to the doctor." I doubt if we will be asked to die for our faith, but our readings today warn us that it might not always be easy to live the commitment we have made. The readings concern the role of the prophet in our tradition. In the first reading, we see the wonderful treatment that the prophet Jeremiah received for revealing what God had said to him. He was thrown into a cistern and left stuck in the mud to starve to death. In the letter to the Hebrews, Jesus is presented as a prophet in the Jewish tradition, enduring opposition from sinners. And Jesus' comments in the gospel can be confusing when we think of him as the Prince of Peace. And I quote, "Do you think I have come to establish peace on earth? No, I tell you, but rather division," end quote. So what is Jesus talking about? To understand, we have to look closely at the role of the prophet. The prophet challenged people to be faithful to their commitments. Jeremiah realized that the king and the people had gone so far from the original covenant with God that only their defeat would bring them back to God. And so he was urging the soldiers not to resist the enemy. The prophet always goes against the status quo because he sees where the status quo is not fulfilling what God wants. And think of the Gospels. Jesus is in constant conflict with the religious leaders, the status quo. He did not support their values and their traditions. In fact, they are the ones who kill him because they didn't want to hear his prophetic voice, challenging the human traditions and the accretions which had crept into their religious practice. Jesus said to them, "You are whited sepulchres. You impose burdens on people and don't lift a finger." This did not make them happy. This is a constant conflict, one that has always been present in the church. Church leaders are human, they make mistakes, they do wrong things. For example, Galileo was persecuted for his scientific findings. Some were burned at the stake by the church. How do we know when we should listen and when we need to be prophetic? I struggle with this personally. On one side, some of the things that the church says or does do not seem right to me. On the other side, I'm human, I have my blind spots, and who am I to challenge the wisdom of the church leadership? The danger on one side is to abdicate one's responsibility and just accept everything the church says without thinking. Someone like that would have approved torturing and killing those who believed that the world was round, or that the earth isn't the center of the universe, even as evidence piled up to the contrary. The danger on the other side is to become arrogant, believing that one knows more than anyone else. How do we find the middle way? These words from Hebrew are a great help, and I quote, while keeping our eyes fixed on Jesus, the leader and perfecter of faith, end quote. We are followers of Jesus Christ and his gospel. That is the final authority. When we stand before God, the church and its leaders will not be with us. We will have to answer ourselves for our beliefs and actions. And so the most important thing is to have a relationship with Jesus, to speak with him and to listen. It's so easy for us to deceive ourselves, to make things easy for ourselves. If we listen to Jesus, he won't allow us to do this. On the other side, it's so easy to abdicate our responsibility for living the gospel to the church. The church supported burning heretics. The church supported slavery. The church covered up abuse. Jesus was uncomfortable with what the religious leaders were doing, but he knew that by speaking out, he would bring division. That is what he means in our gospel today when he says he came to bring division. He didn't want division, but he had to speak the truth, even if that was a consequence. If we are listening to Jesus, he will not let us be comfortable with what is not his will, with what is not right. To be a prophet is to be an adult Christian, to know Jesus and his gospel, and examine all in light of Jesus and what he teaches us in the gospel, both the reality around us and what the church teaches. We cannot simply do our own will, and we cannot simply blindly follow what someone else says. We must listen to Jesus as he speaks in our heart. This week, I invite us to reflect on where we are in the continuum between abdicating our responsibility for following the gospel to someone else on one side and arrogantly following our own will on the other. Hopefully, we're able to hear Jesus speaking in the quiet of our hearts so that we can live an authentic, mature faith. God bless.